On September 16th, 2024, Marty St. Louis gave us the mix. And on April 16th, 2025, the Canadiens have graduated from the mix and are headed to the Stanley Cup playoffs today on Locked On Canadiens.
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into episode 1290 of Locked On Canadiens. Put an X next to our name. The Montreal Canadiens are headed to the playoffs. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day and for subscribing wherever you get your podcast. Doing that supports us and ensures you don't miss an episode, and you don't want to miss any of these episodes as Montreal gears up for their run into the playoffs. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as that Maybe It's Ian. I've talked enough. Laura, I want to open the floor to you, my friend, the active stick. Your first feelings coming out of Montreal defeating Carolina and clinching a playoff spot for the first time in 4 years.
I never doubted them for a second. That is,
I have the transcripts, by the way. That's a lot.
that is absolutely not true. The thing is, here's the thing. The Montreal Canadiens are going to the playoffs. I'm glad they didn't have to do it on a loser point. I'm glad they didn't have to root for Columbus to lose on Thursday. The Montreal Canadiens won their last game, the most meaningful game of the season, the most meaningful game for a lot of these players so far in their careers, right? They are so young. And it feels amazing. Like Montreal during the playoffs, there's a buzz around it. There was a buzz. There has been a buzz for the last month or so. And in the last week, it got quiet and tense and gloomy and doomy and gloomy. And even the weather was not cooperating. And now, Montreal's in the playoffs. It feels like spring in Montreal. It feels like things are right. The Montreal Canadiens, honestly, have given us so much to talk about. And now they're giving us something that, something to be excited about.
Yeah, it's the emotions have done a complete 180 over the last few days. The Canadiens were kind of, I guess, leaving the door open for Columbus for a little too long, and it was making everybody anxious. Rightfully so. You were right to feel that emotion. No one can take that away from you. I compared it. I don't know if it was on camera or off, where I compared it to, watching a horror movie and watching the monster sneak up behind them and go, it's right behind you. Like, that's how it felt watching the Columbus Blue Jackets sneak right up behind the Canadiens, behind a goalie who looks like he's never going to be beaten again. So the margin, we kept mentioning the margin of error for Columbus was very small, but it felt even small, just as small for the Canadiens, given what Columbus was doing.
Right.
So look, we'll talk about the game. Obviously, we'll talk about a few lines here. The identity line, the Canadiens' fourth line, makes its triumphant return, quite honestly. And we'll talk about the big boys, the first line, who really stepped up in this game. And we'll try to figure out, how that can translate into playoff success. The one thing we're not going to do today is preview the series. We're going to have time for that because it doesn't seem like this is starting for a while. Kaiden Guhle let it slip in his media availability that Montreal doesn't play until Monday. I don't know if Kaiden Guhle has any information that the rest of them don't, because Marty St. Louis said he doesn't know when they play. So take that with a grain of salt. You may already know the answer to this by the time you're listening to it, but we will have time to break down the Washington Capitals and that playoff series, likely with the host of Locked On Capitals. So yes, we'll meet up with them and do a show and try not to leave kicking and screaming and punching each other. That's just how playoff series go.
Yeah. We also have some stuff planned with some other shows. And, Game Over is one of our favorite shows that, we've done a lot of crossover guesting, and we're going to do some preview work with them as well. So you will be well covered for the Washington Capitals series by the time it starts.
Yeah. Let's go through this game. At the top of my notes, I've talked about this through the year. I usually put a question at the top that I want answered. And what I wrote at the top of my sheet of notes this time was the blank game. I wanted to know who was going to fill that blank. And I have two answers at the end of this. Kaiden Guhle filled that blank. This was a Guhle game. It's not just because of the goals. The goals certainly helped. They were goal scorers' goals. He kicked in 2 for Carolina. So 4-goal night for Kaiden Guhle. Unfortunately, the first thing I did when he scored his second goal was in our chat, right? Guhle hat trick. Like, I was just, giving him bad time for that. But then the second guy that I wrote in my notes was Slafkovsky. This was a Slafkovsky game. And we'll talk about that line later on, but I thought he was great. Let's talk about Kaiden Guhle. He made some comments about how it was time to get her done. That was the line that every time he did something was just everybody was posting it. Get her done, which is just like such a boomer saying for such a young guy. But what Kaiden Guhle steps up like this. What are your thoughts watching him, become this leader for this team?
Well, it's really interesting because in the Chicago game, he was kind of the GOAT, right? He changed the fortunes of the game. And I think we talk a lot about players like Nick Suzuki after they have a bad game. They recover, et cetera, et cetera. I do want to focus on Nick Suzuki a little bit later as well. But Kaiden Guhle in that Chicago game changed the momentum in the wrong way. And I think he probably caught, whether it was from his coaches, whether he also scrolls like we do, he probably caught that was not the right move, right? I don't think he necessarily cost them the chance at the playoffs. It's not like that. It's just that this time around, I think he really wanted to be effective in the right direction, right? And I think it showed a lot of maturity. And there were a couple of times where it looked like he was in pain. At one point, he disappeared for a second and then did come back. So
very quickly.
Yeah. So he's clearly still recovering from that horrific, gross horror movie type injury he had. But I really liked his attitude and his intensity. And let's be honest, a lot of the times goals go in off of defensemen. I don't necessarily think that, it would have gone off of somebody else. It would have gone in off of somebody else. It just happened to be at that time. It was coincidental that it was Kaiden Guhle. And I think what I really liked about him was I saw him be aggressive. Like the Canadiens were in the offensive zone, things weren't happening, and then you just saw him move up from the point, and you saw him really his body language was forward facing, slanted forward. He looked like he had a mission, right? And so I really love that aggression about him, because something that we talked about with the Canadiens, sometimes they play too timidly. And particularly in a game like this one, I was very worried that they would play not to lose, which I don't think they did. I think Carolina was able to control the game a lot, and especially score effects, things like that happen.
Yeah.
I didn't see them as playing not to lose. And I think Kaiden Guhle's body language, his demeanor, that's what it felt like to me. It really felt like he was playing to win. He was initiating aggression, but not in the counterproductive way that he did against Chicago.
Yeah, I agree. I think he took that lesson the right way, which was not to stop playing that way, but time and place. Pick your spots. You're going to have to play that way in the playoffs, especially against a team like Washington with a lot of big bodies. You got to push him around. The problem in the Chicago game was it was a bad place, a bad time, bad timing, and the result was bad. Everybody was just bad all around. And that's not so much an indictment of the player, just it's the spot, the place and time. He was excellent against Carolina.
And the rest of the team didn't do him any favors in that game, right?
No, exactly. They should have been able to recover from that.
Exactly.
That was we've talked a lot about that Guhle play in Chicago. That was in the first period. That should not have sunk them in that game.
So many things happened in that game.
Yeah, I know. We did have a request before we move on. We have a request from our friend Adam, who wants to see the mic meter. And what I think is interesting about the mic meter in this one is I don't really have a strong feeling either way, but that kind of leans a little bit towards neutral or just slightly positive, because we've been talking about Mike Matheson being a guy that makes a lot of bad decisions as of late. And you didn't really notice him in this one. I will say lots of pucks off shin pads. That's his favorite thing. My theory is that he has a lifelong grudge against shin pads, and he will not stop until he hits them all. But other than that, I thought he was fine.
I made a couple of quips about him passing to the opposing team again.
Yeah.
And then everybody was like, but he just passed to Caufield on that breakaway, Laura. And I was like, all right, I am exaggerating. And I think the thing is with Mike Matheson, what you really want is you want to not notice him. That's what you really want. If he's doing his job, you want to not notice him. Either way.
Yep. I have a Futurama poster hanging behind my recording setup, and I'm reminded of the line, sometimes when you do the right thing, no one's sure you've done anything at all. That needs to be most defensemen. Another one is the guy he plays with, Alex Carrier, who I thought was so efficient in this game against Carolina.
He was so positionally sound.
Yeah.
That was the thing with, and then like at the end there where he tied up the puck for like 2 minutes.
Yeah, Savard on the bench was just like a tear came to his eye. He was like, "Man, they're doing it."
He was so proud.
Yeah, we've joked with the listener Amelia on Blue Sky about how Savard will just sit on that puck and he will die there if he has to, but he didn't have to in this game because look, Carrier is going to do it.
Necessary.
Yeah, it was great. One last shout out before we move on to talk about other things. Sam Montembeault. The second period could have gotten very hairy for the Montreal Canadiens. Carolina was pushing a lot. Montembeault kept them in long enough for them to score 2 goals in rapid succession and kind of put the game just out of reach. Yeah. Again, that's a guy that you need going into the playoffs. And he and Dobish both have played exceptional hockey down the stretch. And they've been locked in for a while. And it's exciting because you have a hot goalie going into the playoffs. Anything can happen. We've seen that in this city with this team.
A lot.
Yeah, probably too much. But this team, it's okay if they get a series robbed by their goalie. All right, we're going to keep the good times rolling. We have some more fun stuff to talk about. I want to talk about the identity line, the fourth line returning, and why they're so effective. And we have to talk about the line that stepped up the most, which was Suzuki, Caufield, and Slafkovsky, and how they can translate that into postseason success. We will get into all of that in just a moment. The NBA and NHL playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly, no waiting around. I love how FanDuel makes it so easy, whether you're picking your favorite team or diving into player props. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways you can bet your favorite player props. And don't forget about the NHL. With the playoffs just around the corner, you can follow your favorite player with props like anytime goal scorer. Plus, after the game kicks off, you can even combine live props into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets if you win your first bet today. All right, Laura, we are back. Friends, we are back. Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Canadiens. It was so over, Laura, but we are in fact so back. It's good to look, we've been trying really hard the last few days to keep things positive. It's been very difficult again with that monster just sneaking up behind you. And now and that John Bartlett's exactly.
And that monster was named Kotkaniemi.
Yeah. He did have an assist in this one, and he had some moments where it was pretty scary, but just like we thought, the Canadiens are heading to the playoffs with Jesperi Kotkaniemi centering the first line. It's just we don't know which team and whether or not he should actually be there. It's very nice to be able to have these conversations now that we've kind of had the sigh of relief. I think when Jake Evans hit the empty net goal, and this is a good segue into the identity line, but John Bartlett on the Sportsnet broadcast said, and now there's a sigh of relief. And like, you could just tell everybody in that building was waiting for a moment to exhale, and they finally got it. But let's talk about that line, the identity line, which is Jake Evans, Yoel Armia, and Emil Heineman, who makes his return in this game from injury. And wouldn't you know it, the Canadiens win, because that's all that happens when Emil Heineman is in the lineup.
He's the glue that holds them together. We talked about it yesterday, and then it turned out to be right.
It's astounding. This team might have won the President's Trophy if he didn't get hit by a car. Like I don't think people have put that much thought into what this team could have been had he not been hit by an employee for the city of Salt Lake City. But like, dang. But like the third period, I thought that fourth line decided nothing's getting by us.
Yes,
they spent their first 3 shifts in that period, especially. Were just spent bothering the Carolina Hurricanes, which is one of the greatest compliments you can give a fourth line is that they're bothering somebody, because that's your job, right? And that line especially, they're going to get the puck in deep and they're going to bother you. Heineman's going to bother you by putting you into the wall, and Army is going to bother you with the greatest stick lifts that anybody has ever done. It's like he's just. I think the button when you're playing the games is like A or X if you're on PlayStation, and he's just jamming that button the entire time, stick lifting guys. It's really impressive to watch. Do you think that, like we joked about Heineman being the glue? Do you think there's any truth to that? Is like why do you think that is? Is it just happenstance, or like is this a real thing?
I think that the fact that he's there optimizes that line, right? They clearly play. I mean, it's not like Jake Evans wasn't working hard or Armia wasn't working hard. And you saw that when Armia went down too, when he was out too. I think that line just, there's something about that line that really, they play in an optimized way when they're allowed to play together. And when they're there, it means that Marty doesn't have to either play Pizzetta or, demote Line or try to figure out what else is going on that line, right? So it gives Marty that flexibility, and it like you don't have to mess with it, right? You don't have to worry about it because it's solid. And so there's no other like I was going to say extraneous, whatever. There's no excessive decision making that needs to be done when that line is intact.
They're
and
low
so
maintenance.
they're low maintenance, and they bring out the best in each other. I thought Armia was amazing tonight. Like Jake Evans, like he was all over the ice. He was just like, and like you could tell towards the end, Carolina was targeting him and Lane Hudson, which I'm gonna go, I have some words for Brindamore, but I really do feel that Jake Evans was all over the ice. Like I saw like Armia, like the stick lifts was one thing, but also just shots, right? They might have gone wide, they might have been blocked, but like
Heineman hit the post in the third period on their second shot. Like that guy has a rocket of a shot that I think we're going to see a lot more of in this playoff series. I'm very excited to see how that line plays.
I hope so. Like whatever physio he needs, whatever therapy days he needs, like you give him that because he really is the glue that holds him together. But no, like I thought Armia as well, like when I look at that line, I think of the forecheck, right? Like they forecheck really hard, but they back check really hard too. So I feel like they're very complete. If only they were just like a little bit more talented creatively. But I think that's it. Like it's not necessarily the presence of Heineman. It's the fact that they're all able to play together that gives Marty the freedom to make other decisions and the ease by reducing the number of decisions he needs to make.
Yeah, I think if you want to take a Heineman angle at this, for me, it's that there isn't a player who will finish his check as hard as Emil Heineman, who you can put on that line.
Yeah.
Maybe Josh Anderson, but you can't put Josh Anderson on that line because the line he's on is a 3-line. Like you're not touching that trio. That is what it is. But yeah, when Heineman gets removed, it just becomes like can Pizzetta hit like that? No. And he's not really trustworthy a lot of the time with the puck or without it, and he takes a lot of stupid penalties. Like
Heineman is there anyone in Laval that can do that? No.
Like maybe one day Luke Tuck. I think that is a guy who could step in eventually and be another, jerk on that fourth line. I think he's a perfect, like him, Tyler Thorpe, maybe one day is just an absolute pain to deal with. And I think that's why we've called them the identity line because they set the tone for this team. Heineman's first game back, and game 82, gotta have it. The game starts with that line. I don't think that's harped on a lot. I don't think it's insignificant that he's got, his top line, like Nick Suzuki I think he finished with 89 points, almost 90. That's a shame. That was really close to 90. Next year, 100. But like he can start with that line and he says, nope, I'd rather get it to my checking line so they can chip it in and set the tone early and make them spend some time down there. They might not do anything with it offensively, but they're going to make you defend them.
Yes.
That's, I think, what's most important about that line. It's super nice to see. And I hope they start to get some like national attention, less so in Canada, more so in the States. Nobody's talking about Emil Heineman, south of the border. But, it's really great to have a line like that heading into the playoffs who plays a playoff type game, whether it's April or December. Like that, they are always those guys.
There's we talked a little bit earlier and when it was announced that Heineman was coming back. He reminds me a lot of Lars Eller. And for me, like not in the way that he plays, but more his presence is one of those, like, you need those guys to win the cup, right? And Lars Eller literally scored the cup winning goal. Like, he's not a top liner, right? Like, I believe he was on the fourth line in Washington. He was on the third line here, but he was on the fourth line in Washington when that
Yeah,
happened.
well, we'll see him again. He's back in
Yeah.
Washington.
Yeah. So like that to me, like Emil Heineman reminds me of that type of guy. And I think one of the other things too is like we are going to talk about this is that that line carries the puck into the zone. And I don't see the top two lines doing that all that much unless Alex Newhook is doing it. So it is something they're going to have to work on over time. Like, you know, I don't know that they're going to be able to fix it entirely before the playoffs start, but like over time, like the Montreal Canadiens need to be carrying the puck into the zone, and that line does that very effectively. One more thing before we move on to the first line. Josh Anderson was given the Jacques Beauchamp Trophy for Unsung Hero. Essentially, the media gave him the Unsung Hero Trophy, and I think to me that was really special. Watching, you know, he had a smile on his face. He's like, you know, when he smiles, he has a little bit of golden retriever energy. But I think it's really good because, you know, the last two seasons, everybody, including the media, including the fans and us too, were essentially running him out of town. Yeah. And, you know, he changed his game a little bit. He, you know, Marty told him he has to do the penalty kill, and he said, okay, I'm going to do it. Right. And he became effective. He found himself again. And I'm really glad that the season ended with it being clearly noticed. Like, that was a message, like that was noticed, right? So I really, really hope that kind of helps him continue with this new dimension in his game, because he's been really effective for the Montreal Canadiens. Although I would like some, you know, vintage 2021 Josh Anderson action in the playoffs where he barrels towards the net and like scores.
Again, that's just a guy who's built to play a playoff type game. And if you would like to notice Josh Anderson more, you can enter our contest by going to YouTube and subscribing there and putting a contest entry down in the chat. When we get to 4,500 subscribers, we will be giving away this lovely photo of Josh Anderson that is signed by the man himself. So join that contest, subscribe to us on YouTube, and put contest entry in the comments. That will secure your entry into the raffle. We're also doing another one at 5,000 for a signed photo of Arbor Xhekaj. If you would like a playoff healthy scratch signed photo. It's not fair. I shouldn't be doing that to a guy who could eat me alive. Okay. Anyway, we'll leave that there. When we come back, we have some things to talk about with the first line and whether or not they can keep this up going into the playoffs. And we'll get into that in just a minute. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with the Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25, that's one of my personal favorites, to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed, as easily as you stream your favorite TV shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney+, Max, and more. Or you can watch us. All Locked On shows are available on your Amazon Fire TV. Gaming is getting expensive these days as well, but with your Fire TV, you can play high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of a console. Already have a console? Cool. A Fire TV Stick 4K device is more affordable and easier to travel with, allowing you to take your games wherever you plug in. I love being able to take those games everywhere I go, whether I'm traveling for work and I just need something to do. Fire TV makes that easier than ever. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. All right, we're back. The third period, the third segment, third period. I would expect Jake Evans to come out here and just never leave the ice, which he really didn't, huh? Like up until the goal, he kind of just was out there the whole time. I know they iced the puck a lot, but he wasn't going anywhere, and that was very reassuring because there are a few players I would trust in a moment like that, and Jake Evans and Yoel Armia are two of them. But that's the bottom of the lineup. Let's talk about the top of the lineup, who I thought really stepped up in this game. Uri Slafkovsky only gets credit for 1 assist, I believe, but he created 2 more goals in a way that he should get credit for. He won't on the score sheet, and that's okay. I think you'll find a player who couldn't care less in Uri Slafkovsky about whether or not he gets the points. But it's funny. A lot of people were really hating his game early on, and I really didn't understand that. I was like, I thought he's playing great. I thought he's playing fine. He's playing big. He's playing annoying. He set up Guhle on the first goal. I think people forgot that. He just whipped the puck across the ice to him. Where did you think of that? Let's start with Slaf. Where did you find Slafkovsky find his game?
I thought he was fine in the beginning. I didn't think he was bad in any way. I thought he was playing fine. I think it didn't look as dramatic as it normally does. So I think maybe that's where that came from. His presence.
I think people were stressed.
Yeah.
Just taking it out on the big guy.
Yeah. And let's be honest, like sometimes his mannerisms on the ice when he's being effective, it does kind of look like a bull in a china shop. It absolutely does, right? Like he's got like a little bit of an awkward gait sometimes, like a giraffe. So I think it was just maybe he was just being too smooth. And so, but I really did think that the last two games actually against Chicago as well, something, and it could be Demidov, it could not be, whatever it is, something has lit a fire under his butt. And I feel like he has played the physical game that we expect him to play, and so sometimes it doesn't look like finesse, and that's fine. So I thought he had a phenomenal last two games, to be honest. He was one of the few people I wasn't mad at.
Yeah,
Chicago.
no kidding. Yeah, and I think his game translates so well to the playoffs. This is the moment we've really been looking for him. Like for him to do this in spurts over the regular season is one thing, because it's tough to maintain that style of play over 82 games. Talk to any of the guys who play that way. It's not possible to do that 82 times in a row. But now that he's heading into the playoffs, it's a sprint. Like he's gonna have to play that kind of game, and I think he can. Like that's gonna be fun to watch. And again, it's house money for the Canadiens.
Mm-hmm.
We get to pick up more information. We get to learn how these guys will react in the playoffs, and that will inform how Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton go about building this team this summer.
Yeah. And I just want to point out that there's a bunch of guys on this team that were, last time the Canadiens made the playoffs, they weren't even drafted.
Yeah.
So very short turnaround. This rebuild is taking a very much shorter time. And Ian, you made the point, and I know we'll talk about it over time. You made the point that this is like, from now on, like there's no such thing as the mix. Like the pressure's on now. Every year on this, they have to build. They've outperformed expectations this year. They've accelerated their rebuild. Marty got asked about that on RDS. But let's get back to that top line. Yeah. I think, and a couple of people observed, I think it was Habs Suzuki on Blue Sky. Nick Suzuki appears to be playing with a hurt shoulder or arm.
Something, right? I mean,
Something's
it didn't
wrong.
Look like it on his goal.
No,
I mean, he got to take a bunch of time, dust that off, paint a picture of it, and to shoot short side and score there. It was such a great shot, and they needed it. They needed him to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. He has balls.
Yeah, he's got the clutch gene for sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Caufield here, though, because another game goes by, he doesn't score, but it wasn't from lack of trying. He had a breakaway. He did hit a crossbar on a 2-on-1 with Nick Suzuki. That immediately after that, Slafkovsky took a tripping penalty, and I think that's part of the reason everybody was losing their minds about Uri Slafkovsky. But I thought Caufield really stepped up in this game.
Yeah.
And it didn't show in goals. He ended up with an assist. Was it just one assist? I think it was just the one. But it didn't, like, he's finding ways to be helpful in other ways than his scoring.
Yeah.
Like if we told you that, years ago that when they make the playoffs, he won't be scoring at the same, he won't have scored the game to put them in the playoffs, we'd be like, that doesn't sound like him.
Yeah.
But he still played a huge role.
Yeah,
and I think that's starting to get going. And that's a guy who has playoff experience. We forget about that run and how Suzuki was there. They went to the Cup final together. Like, if there's any two guys you want
those
on that
are the
top
veterans.
those are the veterans on this team, which is awesome to think about, like how they're building this moving forward.
Yeah.
Because then you've got, the real grizzled veterans like Brendan Gallagher and David Savard. Yeah. So I think, we talk about whether or not the first line can handle this and go into the playoffs and keep this momentum moving. I think it's just they're a Cole shooting percentage bender away from just shocking the hockey world. Like, I think that's so. A legitimate outcome for this team.
Yeah. And I think, like, the point that you made, I think you made it on Blue Sky. He's not getting the bounces. Cole Caufield's not getting the bounces.
Yeah.
Like, legitimately, I think that's true because, and we've seen this before. We saw it last year. We were like, why isn't he scoring? And then we did the math, and the shooting percentage was just way, way, way deflated. And it just happens. It's this thing called luck, right? And we talk a lot about how he's streaky and he scores in bunches, and this is one of them. And maybe one of the bunches is going to come in that first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, who knows? And I wouldn't put it past him to just light it up again. But the fact that line got going against Carolina in a really positive way, it makes me feel way more confident about just wanting to see them more and wanting to see them go on a little bit of a run here, or at least show us in the first round that maybe if they go down, it's not because that line didn't show up, right? Like I would like that to be a group that leads the way.
Absolutely.
Man, what a fun night. I kind of feel bad we have to log off. That has to be the end of the show. It's a bummer.
Still.
We have so many shows coming up between now and when they start. We have obviously we're going to try to do a crossover with Locked On Capitals. We're going to try to do a crossover with our friends at the Game Over Network, and just try to keep the fun times rolling. This is a really great fun time to be a fan of this team. We earned this. If you were watching the game where Michael Pezzetta scored in the shootout and rode his stick like Tiger Williams, you earned this night. You earned Wednesday. So enjoy it. Take the day off like the team, like the players are going to, enjoy yourself, enjoy the moment, but it's almost go time for real. And it's gonna get really intense, really fast. All right, let's do our trivia and then head out of here. We kept talking about Lane Hutson passing Chelios for Habs rookie defenseman scoring, which, by the way, he tied Larry Murphy for most defensive assists by a rookie. So another incredible milestone that we're kind of just glazing over because it was the B plot of this episode. But
poor Lane.
Yeah, poor Lane. But among Canadiens defensemen all time, he was 1 point back of 53rd all time, and now he is tied for 53rd all time with the assist he picked up in that game. Who is ahead of him or now tied with him by 1 point? No one had this one. It's a defenseman by the name of Roger Leger, who played back in the 30s for the Montreal Canadiens, so a very long time ago. But Lane Hutson is very quickly climbing that list. It won't be too long before we're seeing him in the 30s and 20s among Canadiens defensemen scoring. All right, let's do today's question. We get to do some playoff questions now. This is good.
Ooh.
We get to expand our horizons with these questions a little bit. Let's talk about the 2010 series against the Washington Capitals. We know Thomas Buchanan scored the overtime winner in game 1 that gave the Canadiens a shocking 1-0 lead in that series. But who opened the scoring in that game for Montreal? Who scored the first goal of game 1 of the Eastern Conference quarterfinal series against Washington in 2010? If you know the answer, put it in the comments down below. Let us know how smart you are and how excited you are for the playoffs. This is going to be a vibes fest for the next few days. We're very excited to be able to ride that sort of thing. So thanks, as always, for making us your first listen of the day, for subscribing wherever you get your podcasts. Doing that supports us and ensures you don't miss an episode. For your second listen, check out the new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. And we are the game of the night on that. So if you want to keep celebrating this win, head over to Locked On NHL Game Night on the Locked On NHL channels on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We're also available on Amazon Fire TV on your free Fire TV channels app. Click on the Montreal Canadiens logo in the hockey section. You can watch all of our episodes there as well. We are Locked On Canadiens just about everywhere. Blue Sky, TikTok, Instagram, mostly posting a lot of shorts on TikTok and YouTube as well. So follow us there for some instant reactions to a lot of these games. You can find me at Maybe It's Ian. You can find Laura at The Active Stip. Rest up. We're headed to the playoffs. We'll catch you guys later.